were to do, given that B is better than A, right? 2 hours doing something you enjoy is preferred over doing a bad movie. Why is it that when you add in the additional factor of, I just spent $10 and bought a ticket and showed up at the theater, now all of a sudden you would rather see the movie than not see the movie?
But it's not bad.
No, it really depends.
You only
on
know it's bad once you've seen it.
Hold on a second. I just asked you a minute earlier, what would you rather do? Spend 2 hours doing something you enjoy, or spend 2 hours?
Right, but that's assuming you know the movie's bad.
I just put that on the screen. 2 hours seeing a bad movie.
Yes.
So you would rather, okay, I'm on this slide. You just said, I would rather spend 2 hours doing something I enjoy.
Yes.
Okay?
If I know the movie's
No,
bad.
not if. This, right? Right? You just said I'd rather spend 2 hours doing something I enjoy. This is normal, right?
Telephone.
Say it?
Telephone.
Telephone, okay. Spend 2 hours doing something, right? Here, you've just spent, all I've done is I've added more information. And you tell me, oh, well, since I already bought the tickets, and computer.
I didn't say that.
All right, you didn't, but the typical person may, right? And so, by the way, this is the lovely thing about human nature. You can get people who will, change their answers mere moments ago. But given that B is greater than A, why is it that X plus B is less than X plus A? Right?
It's an anomaly.
Right? It's an anomaly of human nature, right? And it's not just doing within the movie theater,
Bad.
right? Why is it, now in this situation, I have added information. But when we go beyond the level of added information, actually thinking not in terms of information, but in terms of actions, right? You took this action, and now since you already slept down here, you may as well spend this extra couple hours in the movie, right? You already did it. What's the worst that happens, right? And the answer is, this is what's called the escalation of commitment to a failing course of action. I want to give you an example of the Shoreham nuclear power plant, which in 1966 in Shoreham, Long Island, they were going to build a nuclear power plant, and it says it's going to cost about $65 to $75 million, will be done by 1973. And every couple of years they said, oops, we underestimated the cost, and we underestimated how long it would take, and every couple of years they revised the cost estimate and how long it would take to complete, right? So, over 1966, now already 10 years later, by 1976, they said it'll only cost about $1 billion in total, and will be done, we promised, by 1978, and of course, by now 20 years after that, now in the mid-80s, now this is a machine that's going to, a nuclear power plant, that would cost over $5.5 billion, when finally they said, you know what, we're not going to get this thing to work. And they actually just shut it down.
Oh,
So how do you get
30 years?
Can I ask you a question?
20 years.
You've got a
20
list
years.
of, you've got a list of cost estimates. Where's the list of cost estimates?
Good question.
Because maybe, even though they started estimating it's going to cost so much more, they haven't really spent that.
No, I believe those were estimate of incurred costs to date
Oh wow.
each time. Yeah.
That's crazy. So
It
what's
is
the-
crazy.
They shouldn't have started.
Right. So obviously, look, if you had told me on April 13th, 1966, this thing was going to cost over $5.5 billion, then their payback of saying, yeah, this is a good deal for $70 million, doesn't really become worth it, right? So how did, and this is the thought exercise between now and next week, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more. How is it that perfectly rational, sane people,
Probably smart people.
right, and perhaps even smart,
Maybe.
got themselves further and further down the pike of committing themselves to basically throwing good money after bad, right? So just in the same way that I was able to get you to say, well, I'm already down to the movie theater, I may as well just watch this movie, with the exception the person's going to go watch it anyway because he doesn't like to spend 2 hours doing fun things. But the people like say, like, I already spent a couple hours, I may as well go see this movie. And they can't figure out how to explain it except by like kind of
the time span is a lot. People wake themselves up way earlier.
You would think. This is actual. This is not an idea, and this happens all the time, right? Think of every municipal project you've ever heard of that was over budget.
You say you got doctors for this.
Every municipal project you've ever heard of that went over budget, inevitably, is because halfway down the process they said, "What should we do? We throw in good money after bad." Think of every novice poker player you've ever played with.
As well.
This is exactly gambling,
Yeah,
right?
gambling
You throw
is
bad,
short
good money
lived.
after bad.
No one is gambling in 30 years. That's what I'm saying. This is a gamble of 25 years.
The time period is only, it becomes compressed, right? You're throwing good money after bad.
All you know is something
Throwing good money after bad.
It'll be closed. They'll say, but
The question is, why and when do we throw good money after bad, and how do we get out of doing that? Okay, that's what we're going to think about next week. And also we're going to think about more about game theory, more about consumer response, and we're going to talk about Coca-Cola.
That's the case we got to do next week.
Yeah, the case
Coca-Cola.
next week is Coca-Cola, and the case also next week I think is eHarmony.